Anything to say? You're on the agenda. Anybody else? Nobody's here. Closing the open forum. Moving on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda has no surprises, the typical 3 items. Unless someone would like to pull something for consideration, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented, the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Movement and a second.
Second.
Movement and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, Planning Commission reports. So, Jennifer, if you want to come up, you can just sit there and listen too. Or, you probably don't have anything to really add because we've already
No,
gone through
let's see
everything.
if you have any questions.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we have in front of us Resolution 2018-01, first one of the year. So this is a conditional use permit for a vacation, 1 unit of vacation rental in an existing duplex on 5th Avenue, which is in the RCN zone.
And just to be clear, we don't call them vacation rentals. They're-
What-
It's a one-unit lodging facility. Because
Lodging.
we don't distinguish between types of lodging
Gotcha.
there.
So lodging is just considered a short-term, like a,
Yep.
Lodging is a permitted or a conditional use in the various districts.
Less than 30 days, right?
Less than 30 days.
Yep.
Lodging, yes, of less than.
yeah, that's, the lodging is sets.
So what do we,
Okay.
what's the term we use for the longer than 30 days?
Residential.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. So you can see in your packet that we've got the full application and the findings from the commission. There's 4 findings that it is conforming to the land use and plan of the city. It's compatible with the existing neighborhood. Similar lodging area is there. Use will not impede the normal orderly development of improvement. And the location or character of the proposed use is considered to be consistent with the pattern of development. So, sounds like there were questions about parking, and those were answered satisfactorily.
Off-street parking is available on the property. There was one neighbor had submitted a letter of support, and there were other neighbors, 5 other neighbors that had submitted their signatures on a petition supporting the request also.
Okay. So, with all that said, I would open it up for conversation, or else entertain a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-01.
Okay, motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All right, so any further discussion? I would like to say that I think that the RCN zone is kind of a goofy one.
It is, and I think it's because of the nature of
Fifth
the
Avenue.
old Gunflint Trail with different types of uses that existed historically.
Yeah.
And yes, it is odd, but I think
It's a
it,
goofy one.
It's a goofy one.
yeah.
I'm not saying that there's any changes required with that. I'm just saying that it's goofy.
Yeah, I think when you have lodging facilities and residences, courthouse, laundromat, and the types of uses that are along the old Gunflint, you know, it's hard to pigeonhole it in a district that seems pretty homogeneous.
Right.
It's not.
Right, and that is still and always will be one of the main thoroughfares through the city.
Yep.
So, do you have something you want to say?
No, that's what I was going to add.
Yep.
You just said.
Okay. Anybody else have any further discussion?
Well, I mean, I would say that it's obviously would be appropriate in that zone, but just let the record show that a single tear drops from my eye, losing another long-term residence. But I think it's great. One of the things mentioned in here is for employees of the hospital who are not long-term, but not one-night-only sort of situations too. I think that's a real appropriate, great
And I
option.
also live there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, carries. Then we're going to move right along. So we have some appointments to some boards we need to take a look at. If you look at your if you look at your packet, you will find a listing of the ones that we need to reappoint. So the library board, we have one opening. Helen Muth has served on the board one term already. She's willing to continue, as are Sally Bergen, Kay Tavernier. Michael Gary and Hal Greenwood are willing to do the remaining periods in their possible terms. For the Planning Commission, you may notice that there is an empty bullet point below that one. I've been talking to some people who may be interested in that, and I would encourage everyone else to continue talking to people to find people interested in that. And yeah, we should find somebody for that position. And then George Wilkes is willing to continue for the openings for public utilities.
I would make a motion to approve the board appointments for the various committees.
Second.
And that's one we can do all together.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any conversation? I think that it's important to point out that that quite a few of these positions will be opening up in the next couple of years. So I think that it would be in our best interest to start trying to figure out a better way to encourage people to participate so that we can have full commissions and boards. So that's all.
Yeah, one thing I would add is that we do appreciate and thank those people that do step up and are willing to serve on these
Mhm.
boards and commissions.
So there were not any additional applications for the openings.
No.
Well, I hope that the city gets on the Facebook, and
The Facebook?
Feel free.
I'm on the Facebook.
Good.
You're not on the Facebook.
And but I'll also be resigning. But I think from my limited experience, that's been the most successful way to reach the most people in the community as of late. So, just a suggestion, not trying to tell you how to do your job.
To start conversation.
not ours.
It's
That's
still
the
yours,
thing.
too.
Ah,
Still. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, now we're going to go on to council appointments. So I think that it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for us to figure out how to re-proportion these well, I guess it doesn't really matter because hopefully we'll have somebody to step up to the council right away, so we won't have to cover for Dave.
Well, I think the question is, does anybody want to be on the park board that's planning on being on the council next year? And if somebody says yes, great, and if not, then whoever you find to be the next city councilor will also be your park board representative.
And it might not be a bad idea for us to take a look. You know, we can either, if anybody wants to pick up any of the things that Dave's on, I think now would be the time to do that. But I do think that we should, when we get a new councilor, and we should revisit this and redistribute as according to the strengths of that person that we find. So with that said, does anybody want to pick up those things, or should just assign it all to Anton because he's not here?
That sounds fair.
So the Public Utilities Board, just as a reminder, can't have the Public Utilities Commission member on it. So if you're going to appoint somebody that's not Dave Mills, it's going to have to be
Me.
Jay. Then
Do we need to have 3 on that one?
you do.
Well, you may as well put me on it then until we get another.
Yeah, and
Well,
it meets every 5 to 10 years.
It hasn't met since you've been in office,
Yeah.
so.
Wow.
Oh,
Well, that's going to be the first thing getting on that board is I'm going to set up a meeting.
We did meet
it happened.
once.
It happened once.
Yeah,
We did meet once.
Yep.
Once.
one time.
Mhm.
Yep.
And Dave, you were highly successful at that meeting. Job well done.
Thank you. It's what I try to be in all my meetings.
So anyway, I think any other positions or appointments that we have, we could talk about more productively at a later date. I am interested in a couple of the liaison positions that Dave has. Well, I'm interested in both of them, but I wouldn't necessarily want to be on both of them. So we'll just have to see how that shakes out.
Okay.
Or go for it.
I don't think I'm ready yet.
Okay.
We'll see who that person is who steps in, because I think that sounds like a better way of moving forward with that.
Well, if you're suggesting to just hold off on this, I'm going to recommend that you don't, because these boards need members, and including you all, to conduct their business. So I'd say at least make appointments, and if your intention is to revisit that, that's okay, but
So you think we should make appointments?
fill them tonight,
Fill them tonight.
and then you can revisit that. when you
Okay,
get
so
another
you're
person.
putting me on the Public Utilities Board, because I'm the only other one that can do it. Does anybody want to step into the Park Board on a temporary basis at least?
I will do that on a temporary basis.
Okay, cool.
What day did they meet? What day of the week?
Write that in with pen.
I got it.
Is that Tuesday, first
First Tuesday,
First Tuesday?
Tuesdays, really?
Is that bad for you?
afternoons.
Yeah, 4:45.
Oh, I can certainly make it. Okay.
You just don't want to? Or-
It's only once a month. No,
That's
it's
true.
one day.
Oh, that's right, I remember that, yeah, because whenever we do that. And then the food project, does anybody have a strong feeling about the food project or the YMCA? 'Cause if you don't, I'll pick up those meetings until we have somebody else.
Well, Pete's already on the Y board, so I don't think I'll.
Okay. Well, put me down for the Y, and then,
Is the Northwoods Food Project still meeting actively?
Yeah,
They meet
this
once
last
a
one
week.
was canceled, and I've missed a few.
they miss me every
Um,
month or two.
Yeah, it's still actively meeting. I'd
And they
say.
still want to have a council liaison?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, you can pencil me in on those, and then we'll just give it all to Anton next meeting. All right, does anybody have anything else that they'd like to mention about that, or?
The only thing that I see on here is that the city's representative to the County Parks and Trails Commission is not on here.
Oh, and that's you.
That's myself, yeah.
Is there any other things that we should add to this list that people sit on? Trying to think of the meetings that I go to. I just go to the creative economy meetings and the downtown business meetings,
Yeah.
but I don't know if we need to put that on there as a liaison position or not. I'm looking at you because you're the guy
No,
who would say-
I don't think you need to. And,
Okay.
you know, the distinction being that they're not doing official voting
Gotcha.
in those meetings, and so there's not a membership kind of qualification. Whereas
Right,
in
and
these
these-
boards, you're either a liaison to another existing organization, or you're actually a voting member of a board, so.
With these organizations or groups, they've asked for a city representative for the most part to
Yeah.
be part of their process.
Yeah, and I just barged onto this.
Well, there's a lot of other
They
things
would've
that
asked
we
you.
might participate in, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we've been asked to be
Right.
an official
Member,
And-
member
representative.
and representative of the city. So-
Since the city's not paying meeting per diem for your participation, it's really not super critical that we get all of the things that you're participating in and that you approve in an official manner. But these boards where you're voting, it is important.
I'm sorry?
You know, the county has a
Yes.
10-page list.
Yep.
And they have official meetings that they get paid to go to.
Yep,
And so they need to make sure that all of those things are included on a list.
right.
Since we're not paying you, it's not as critical that we
Right.
get all of the meetings that you're participating in
Right.
officially recognized.
Gotcha.
We're doing it for just the fun and pleasure.
Mhm.
Yes.
See,
Mhm.
Kicks. I believe is the term.
kicks, yeah.
Okay, so so where we're at then, we've got some adjustments made. If there's no more discussion, I'd entertain a movement to, or a motion to approve the council appointments as amended. Anybody?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, good. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any last discussion, last things?
Thanks for taking over my meetings, Jay and Tracy.
Just
You're
for temporarily.
So welcome.
Go for some
I guess.
tequila.
You might not resign.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now his load, now his workload
Might
is
as well stick
greatly
around.
diminished. May as well stick
It's way
around.
easier now.
All right, motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right, so the next thing we have on the list is the acting mayor. So Tim Kennedy has served as the acting mayor for the past 3 years? 12 years.
More.
Are you willing to do it again, or do you want somebody else to do it?
It's a tough job, but, you know.
12
I had a
years
point.
more. 12 years more. I make a motion to select Councilor Kennedy as the acting mayor for
Acting mayor. You're going to deputize him. I'll second that motion. I get to do that every once in a while. Any further discussion?
He's done a bang-up job in the past.
Yeah, what to talk about is
So.
attendance.
Mayor's afraid to leave town,
Yeah,
see?
that's right. That's all it's all about. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, moving on to the official newspaper. We got an advertisement from, or a bid from the Cook County News Herald. Prices have stayed the same for our use of the paper. That is really the only paper that meets the criteria. There was a little bit of a discussion before the meeting started about whether or not the Northern Wilds met the criteria. And I don't think it does, because it's printed every month instead of every week. But I don't know if we know that.
I don't know that they were ever interested in it, but.
Yeah, I don't know if they're interested in it either, but interesting to think about, because everybody gets that. Like, that just is automatically given to everybody
That's
in
true.
the city. So we have one bid, though, for the official newspaper. So.
I'd make motion to approve the Cook County News Herald as the official newspaper of the city.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Chirp, chirp. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. So now we've got our list of depositories. So pretty much we use every bank in town, and we've got a couple of other funds that we put money into. So
A couple other mattresses too?
a couple other mattresses, a
few
couple
holes
of
in the
holes in the
ground.
floor. Yeah, that's about right. So we have the depositories of the same ones that we used in 2017. Unless somebody would like to have discussion about the banks that we use, I would entertain a motion to approve the list as presented.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seems like they're meeting our needs, right?
Yeah.
Kim? Yep.
Well,
Good.
we're invested.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, so we're just cruising right along. The mileage rate, you can see that's in your package. That is 54.5 cents for every mile of business travel. The medical ones and moving one, we don't use as much. But that's it. So it would go up a cent from last year.
I move to approve the mileage rate for 2018.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Now, here's a question, logistical question.
Yeah.
Can we set that rate at whatever we want to, or do we have to set it at what the IRS puts it at?
You can set it at whatever you want to. You're talking about, basically this is income. So if you pay this to an employee as mileage reimbursement, it's taxable income. If it's set at the rate that the IRS says is the rate that they'll approve,
Mhm.
then it's completely, none of it's taxable. If you
Oh.
wanted to pay somebody $5 a mile to drive, you could do that. The amount that's above this amount would be taxable income.
Okay.
And if you didn't want to pay anybody anything to drive, you could do that too, and they could make their own,
Adjustments. Or-
yeah. But I hope you don't do that, because then we'll have to buy some more city vehicles.
I'm not going to do that. All right, so the motion and a second for 54.5 cents per mile for the 2018 mileage. Any last comments? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, do you guys have any other items that you would like to add?
Nope.
Then we'll go straight into the council and staff reports. Mr. Mills, you are up.
I have nothing.
Got a lot of time here, but.
Yeah. A lot of time to think of something.
Tell those stories.
No,
Right.
no.
So I'm gonna him and haw here for a little bit. Give
Yeah.
him a chance to reconsider.
Okay, Tim, you're up.
I'm done, Got nothing.
Really? Oh, I suppose this is the
Holiday
first.
season.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought
Really?
figured there would be
Really?
lots of announcements because it's been basically a month since we've had updates.
Not much, yeah,
but Not much has been done.
not much happening, no.
Okay, Tracy,
Power
you're. I
outage.
was going to bring that up.
Well,
Oh.
yeah, there was that. Run on candles. I did have.
really? Did you sell a bunch of candles?
Actually, we did.
That's really
Really?
cool.
Sure,
restocking.
I'm sure, yeah.
I believe that.
There was brought to my attention that possibly we might want to think about some kind of street assignments now during plowing season, especially because of our narrowed streets, because so many people continue to park on the street, and especially when we look at areas where we have more concentrated living. And so with these streets, and it's harder for people to navigate, obviously, up and down. It always has been to go up and down the streets when it's slippery, but then, and it's harder to plow when these cars are parked there. So there was a question, is it time to, do the odd and the even side of the streets or some kind of assignment so plows can go by more easily and just keep the space, 'cause especially you'll end up seeing two cars parked exactly in the same space.
And then the plow can barely get through.
Well, and if you're going up or down the street, it's hard too.
Mhm.
And it can be kind of scary when you're coming down the street if you do start to have a slip or a slide, and now you're looking at cars on either side of this, So anyways, something to think about, not right this moment, but it was asked. I said, okay, probably makes some sense.
Yeah, I've noticed that there are certain streets that happens a lot on. Other streets it's not as big of a deal, but yeah, there's a lot of streets where that happens.
And then I was just going to ask if we've got any updates or status on our comprehensive plan. So you guys have that to talk about.
Mhm.
And then do we have a joint powers meeting? Okay.
I talked with Mike about that because I've been having a really hard time getting people together, and I think if it's okay with you guys, what I'll do is I'll just contact the heads of those different boards and just see if we can get together, just the heads of the boards, and just find some time where we can sit down and have coffee and talk. Because it just seems like whenever we try and find a date, or even the act of finding a date, it seems to be prohibitive. So if you guys think that's all right, then you can tell me what to bring up at the meeting, and then I can do that. But I think that really the value of having everybody in one place is to make sure that everybody, knows who everybody else is and can talk to one another about issues when they do come up.
Well, can you still invite everybody? They don't all have to make it.
Yeah, it seems like getting people to bite on a date is really tricky. We haven't really tried that hard, but it would probably. We'll try again. Let's try one more time.
Yeah, send out some kind of official.
Yeah, we'll send out a doodle poll.
We'll just pick a day, I think.
Just pick a day.
Yeah.
Like that?
Wednesday nights work, right?
Yeah, they do. Like tonight would have been great. Probably by 7:30, right? And then I was wondering with rumblings once again about the highway project, and I've been hearing a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
Is it time once again to make some communication out to the public? Is it time to, I'm assuming our project is officially up on the state's webpage now?
No, I don't think it is, no.
Okay.
I'm not sure that they have a set of plans that they're making.
So
Available
that's
to
not
the
a
public?
source yet to send people
No,
to
we're
for
not
doing
info?
that.
Okay.
We're not
No,
gonna
we
do
have
that.
access to a set of plans that it's difficult to make available to the public, but that we can
Mm-hmm.
get anyone, if they want to see any part of it, we can make that happen. So if people actually have rumblings, you can offer them that avenue. Just come to City Hall and we'll make sure they can see whatever they want to see about it.
Okay, so that's one way to get information, but
Yeah.
the questions that are coming to me are pretty basic, but they're pretty wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, is it time for us to put out just a, here's what's new, here where we're at, maybe just a once more, here are the basics about what's happening? You're not
Maybe.
even at
I
a
mean,
really-
what the plan was that the steering committee's been working on is maybe one or two more iterations, kind of working directly with the property owners and the design team. We have been in contact, and that's probably why you've been hearing some rumblings, because we've been making contact with a bunch of the adjacent property owners. In particular, properties where something's happening in the plans that will affect them in some noticeable way.
I mean, that could be conversation, but those aren't the people who are making the comments to me.
The plans themselves, I think, are close to where there's going to be some sort of an official review process by the
Mhm.
council. And I think at that time, we'll want to make an effort to kind of get the word out to everybody. Here's where the project's at, here's what things look like. But we could maybe just do a frequently asked questions sort of thing now and get that out. So if you have any frequently asked questions, let me know what they are so we can make sure we get the right ones on there.
Something as basic as when is this actually happening? And just sort of a re-summary. I'm still not sure people understand that this is a state plan on a state highway for which we are simply attempting to come through and make changes, because it's financially beneficial to us, certain things while the roads are upright, certain improvements. Other things we've decided are helpful in improvements as well. But just even summarizing and kind of putting it all back in the right perspective of what this is would be helpful, I
And
think.
I think we've been trying to be a little bit careful at the steering committee level to not release information while it's still being, the design is still being worked on and the issues are still trying to be addressed and resolved, because putting information out today, today might not be the same information that might be available tomorrow. I mean, things could change, but we're getting close. I mean, things are moving along.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think even at a real high summary level. And then, yeah, I do, and I will back up and say that I think some communication should have been a lot sooner and a lot more directed to the people directly affected. I think there was a real lapse on that.
Yeah,
I
and
think we
part of-
really need to step up a little bit on that.
Well, we are. Part of the reason that, and I don't disagree with you at all.
I mean,
Part
that's-
of the
yeah.
reason that took so long is because we really had nothing to go on. Like,
Except
for-
that you knew that things weren't the same, with different opinions from the state and the players involved, and changes to the thought process. That's all. I mean, we don't have to go on about it, but
I guess I don't follow where you're
it's a
going.
lesson I think we need to learn, that we need to stay highly involved with the true people really impacted, which is what you commented about at first, business owners and people along the strip. I think we had a lapse in getting to them in a little bit more timely manner.
Yeah.
And things were
Well-
known to be changing. Even though they don't have to be like set, but we know it's not where we left them at.
Do you mean just that we should have just reached out to them and just said, hey, this is taking us a lot longer than we thought?
And things aren't going to be the way we last left it with you. I think that would have been helpful too.
I guess I don't
But
know.
anyways, yeah, the comments that I'm getting aren't really from those people, but there's some really obvious, well, to me, I mean, for all the communication we have done, some of the things that people don't seem to have right. So I thought, well, even high level, some
Yeah.
communication
Mhm.
out would be
We
helpful.
can do that for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I'm sure that the paper would love to have I just made a quick jot down of some of the things here. We can talk about that
And the
later.
steering committee hasn't met since first,
Beginning of December.
first part of December, and we're meeting again next week.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be one step closer to, having a more complete plan.
I've been pretty
There's
pleased.
there's still some issues out there and, areas that we don't have, very complete information on.
Mhm.
Oh, that's all I had that I could think of.
Okay. I've been thinking about Highway 61. I'm going to be making notes. I had a bunch of different meetings. The we have to make a decision or move on appointing the Green Steps and Climate Action Plan coordinator. We were successful in getting that grant to fund that position, and we have a candidate who is interested and willing, interested, eager, willing, all of those things, to do that position. So plan on seeing that in one of the upcoming packets, so that we can take a look at the job description, make any changes we might need to do, and then move forward with that position. The Creative Economy Group had a meeting this past week, and I sat down with them and talked a little bit about their interest in an arts commission. So if you may remember last year, we kind of deputized them to come up with ideas for the arts commission. Right now they have 4 different scenarios that they've come up with that could potentially achieve what they're talking about. I think they're working on formalizing those 4 concepts, and once I receive that information, Mike and I will sit down and kind of hash some stuff out with that, and then see when that's ready to bring to the council for consideration. But we'll make sure that we give it a once over before we bring it, so that it makes sense. Did I give you guys an update on the library board meeting that we had last? I mean, it was right after we had our last meeting.
Before you change topics, is that what you're done with art?
I'm done with the arts. I just roll.
I just have a quick question then.
Yeah.
So this morning, when I interviewed Anne Michon about art around town,
Mm-hmm.
and she talked about what they've accomplished to date, how does that group work with this art commission? I guess I kind of thought that was.
They're different groups, but we have representatives from both that are.
So it's like 2 separate projects?
Yeah, the arts commission is a different thing than Arts Around Town.
As I saw, once I realized she said she did she didn't, but their group did the banners.
Mhm.
I thought
Banners.
this was coming from that sort of art commission group we talked about, but no, totally.
No,
Okay.
they found the funding and did the designs and donated all of the banners and stuff like that to the city, and that was kind of their MO on that one.
Well, it just
For
sounded
Arts
they were
Around Town.
still busy. They'd like to further continue putting art out in our community, and which she defined as the whole county. So is that like we're going to have 2 separate things moving forward?
No, there's representatives that are on the Arts Around Town thing that come to the creative economy.
I think they're maybe
No, I
functioning
meant
at a different
art-
level too. Like
Yeah.
the art commission would be talking about policy and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of level, and Art Around Town is actually trying to implement project by project, and they're not the only group doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the Art Commission will end up working with a lot of organizations like Art Around Town, doing project by project stuff, and maybe try and guide their efforts or steer them towards what we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be important for them to get up and running fairly quickly if we have other initiatives like this that actually want to do something.
Yeah.
They need that kind of guidance, or we run into the same kind of issues that happened at the park board
Mm-hmm.
with art that,
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
That's the risk.
Because they're, the park board and the planning and zoning aren't really tooled up to deal with that kind of stuff.
well, and
they
not only
certainly
that,
can, but
just what was offered, whatever. There
Yeah.
wasn't a way to make a good decision.
right. Yep.
Good criteria. Okay. I just wanted to,
Yep.
understand. Okay, sorry, library.
Library board, as you know, that their budget was approved for 2018. At our last meeting, it was very short. They just gave us a bit of an update on library activities. It's still going to be busy all winter long at the library, with the Friday evening movies and other legacy grant programs that are going to be happening there. So it's just pretty cool that they keep putting on great stuff and having lots of people use the library. So that's really good. Moving on, this weekend I'm going to be going down to the cities to sit on a panel of mayors talking about how creative placemaking and art in their community has shaped their community. So that should be pretty cool. I'm excited about that. So I'll bring back some more updates on how that goes. But the only other thing that I had was just an update that on Friday morning, before I go down to the cities, there's going to be a debriefing for the follow-up to the power outage. So Mike and I are going to go to that. And
Kim's
we're
going to go too.
Kim's going to go too.
My guess is at 10:30.
Oh, Mike is going to.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike is going to step out of that meeting shortly after it starts.
Yes.
And then we're just going to go over what worked, what didn't work, so that we can get better at responding to things like that. Because the response was pretty good once we figured out what was going on.
And to my understanding, this meeting on Friday is about the communications around the
Mhm.
issue, not
Not
really
the actual
about the
thing that
issue
happened.
itself.
Yeah.
So,
So that's like with Valerie and,
yep.
Mhm.
and the county and
And the
everybody.
press will be there, and then all the kind of players that could be part of that, getting the word out.
Yep.
It's good. It was great to see the county really get involved with Valerie's efforts in communications and getting word. That's kind of a new thing for us to see, and I really appreciated it. And I'm really glad that we're going to do this follow-up too, to see if there's a way that we can participate in that more effectively. And it's good stuff. And also, just want to say thank you to Arrowhead Electric.
Oh,
that
man.
Sent some crews out. It was very nice to have a couple of extra crews to help out, because it was a big job until they could really narrow in what the issue was.
Well, and for Matt and Jeff to, be able to jump on it and, try to keep things moving along,
Yeah.
with that,
We don't very often have to call. As a matter of fact, I don't remember the last time that we did.
Called for some help.
But it's just nice to be able to do that, come together as a community and take care of each other. So
Yeah. So if you see those guys, say thanks.
yeah.
Anything else?
Well,
You wanted an
remembered
update on the vision.
Oh, visioning, right.
oh
So-
yeah, well I did. I'm sorry, you finished that and I was just going to, see what I was going to say. Go ahead. Because I did ask about the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
Yeah. So at the last council discussion about it, the format of the section was generally acceptable. The particular bits of data from the engagement effort there were some questions about that, and what we talked about was that community design group would put together some options for us, and that we would have the steering committee revisit those options and look at it. So I just received those this week, and we'll be planning a steering committee meeting in the next couple of weeks to look at that. In the meantime, they're also the efforts kind of at the community design group area right now. They're working on the rest of the sections to match that same format. We also had a conversation about extra money and work in the plan that was involved in getting that done, and focusing their efforts in the place that would be the most useful to us to make sure that we got specific zoning language in the CI district completed.
Mhm.
And I think we have a pretty good plan for that too. And it's very similar to what we talked about at the council meeting, that we're going to use them mainly to do kind of some background research and find other places that are dealing with similar issues and find some similar language for us to look at. And we're going to then, with our own efforts, look at how the vision language, what guidance it provides us, how we read it basically, and then the public engagement efforts we're going to do ourselves as well, rather than have them come up here, since that's kind of an expensive way to use their time.
Right.
So that's the results from since the last time. So those of you that have participated in that steering committee, look for an invitation tomorrow.
You were going to follow up, I think, on part of the project cost, and were there some issues with that?
They had made a specific request for more funding, which you had approved,
Mhm.
and it was, the way I understood it, that approval was contingent on assurance that we were going to get some of the particular product, and most importantly, that we were going to get the specific zoning language for the CI
CI,
zone
yeah.
included in our efforts.
So you're satisfied that we're going to get all of the things that we had asked for that addition, included with that additional money?
I'm satisfied that it's a fair request and that we're using those resources in the most effective way possible to get the product that we're asking for. I think that we know a lot more about what our role is going to be in that, and it's a lot more active than maybe my impression was earlier, but it feels right to me to do that. I think it's time for us to start to learn how to use this document and as a community, just kind of build a habit to do this without having a consultant help out. So I think it's the right way to go on this, and they'll still be there to help us with some of the maybe more labor intensive but less driving up here and time intensive things.
And with the CI specific zoning language, you know, are they going to help us walk through that process, or is that something that we're going to take on? They're going to give us the language, and we're going to take that through our process?
Well, we can use them like during a planning commission meeting. We could certainly have them participate if that seemed to be appropriate, if it seemed helpful. You know, that doesn't necessarily take a lot of their hours to just get on the screen and talk to us. But I don't know that we have a real good timeline yet on how that's going to happen, to put that language together. So the part that we know they're going to be involved in is really one of the concurrent first steps, which is let's go and educate ourselves a little bit on what other people have done with this issue and kind of see what does the landscape look like, what are our options, are any of these things that we're satisfied with. So I can imagine that just being presented as a report to us, that we wouldn't necessarily need them to present in person or even over the video.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the bigger challenge will be when we have a public hearing and invite the community to participate, when the issues that surrounded the initial conversation are still out there.
Yeah.
And how we attempt to address those concerns by the ordinance, I think, are going to be subject to a fair amount of discussion.
I agree, which is why I'm hoping that we're not going to use the public hearing as the focus of our engagement efforts, but rather more of a capstone of an effort that we've already done to reach out to the community and talk about what we think we've already heard in the visioning from them and what that means in this issue and what some of the options are, and maybe try to get the feedback from people at that level. Whereas before we really didn't have any guidance or any way to steer the conversation. And some of the things that people brought up are issues that we'll probably be able to find a good solution to, and some of the things that people brought up we're not really positioned to deal with. So I think we'll see more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think until we see the language that is proposed, you know, we really won't know how to react to that.
Yeah. That's it.
Oh, when you talk about the library, I just want to say one more time how wonderful it is that we have such a great library. And it's all because so many people use it. And it is so important because it's just everybody can have access to all sorts of information of any kind they want. And it really makes us such a better community. And I just hope everybody really grasps that we're so fortunate, but it's of our own doing. And I hope the library continues to be able to spend some time and effort, you know, not just talking about what they do, but, you know, getting that out. What a great, you know, we're fortunate to have this library and all that it does, and I hope they come up with great ways to market themselves and just, you know, pat all their patrons on the back for using it. And I'd also like to say how much it is exciting to walk into that Y and see all those kids and all those families and see that parking lot full most of the time, and watching all those parents coming and going and picking up their kids from all the different lessons and classes, and watching the kids running around. I mean, I'm a little aggravated when they're all in the locker room at the same time, but short of that, I just think it's really pretty darn awesome, and we're pretty fortunate to have that. And I really hope that the Y can find ways to, through their patrons as well, send a message out about all that they benefit from it and all that they use it with, and it's pretty neat. We're pretty lucky. And obviously a lot of people in our community think so because they are using it.
Yeah.
It's designed for 200 members and it has 1,700 members. So locker rooms are a real tight spot.
Yep.
Certainly have. Anything else? Okay, we are adjourned. 7:15.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too.